I'm going to do things just a little bit differently this time around. Instead of recapping each game and giving my thoughts, I'm going to recap how every team has been doing this season and giving a current grade based on how they have done. I figured this was most appropriate since I've missed so much time. I'm going to go alphabetically, so App State is first. App State beat ETSU, got destroyed by Clemson, narrowly beat East Carolina, and got crushed again by South Alabama. Sadly, their game against Liberty got canceled, since it was literally flooded in Boone. I seriously hope Western North Carolina has received the aid they needed. It's been rough around that area. It's been rough for App State football, too. They lost a shootout to Marshall 52-37 and lost to Louisiana 34-24. At least they've been a little more competitive, but you guys were expected to compete for a Sun Belt title, potentially. You definitely were not supposed to be 0-3 in the conference by now. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a D, since you already won a few games. I'd be impressed if you can make a turnaround, but I seriously doubt you can do that. Arkansas State has had a pretty weird year. When we last checked on them, they beat Central Arkansas and Tulsa by a combined 7 points, and lost to Michigan and Iowa State in games they were expected to lose. Since then, they've beaten South Alabama by 2 and lost to Texas State 41-9. The good news for Arkansas State is they had less expectations. I had them finishing around 4-8 or 5-7. So they've actually been on par so far. And they've already picked up a Sun Belt victory against South Alabama. So I'm going to give these guys a C+. I'm not saying they're better than App State. I'm just saying they've had a better season than App State. Coastal Carolina is kind of a wild card of a team. When we last checked on them, they were 3-1 with wins over Jacksonville State, Temple, William and Mary, and their only loss was to Virginia. Now they've beaten Old Dominion 45-37 and lost to James Madison 39-7. Unfortunately for CCU, the opponents they actually beat are kinda lacking in quality, and the two actual quality teams they played against, they got smashed. So I'm very much willing to call these guys frauds. If they get lucky enough though, maybe they can win the Sun Belt East Division and get to the conference championship. C+. When we last checked on the Eagles, they had wins over Nevada and South Carolina State and losses to Boise State and Ole Miss. Now they've picked up 2 more wins. They won the Georgia Grown Bowl 38-21 over Georgia State. Why they changed it from modern day hate, I don't know. And then there's the Marshall game. They were down 23-3 with under 7 minutes to go in the entire game. Somehow, someway, they won 24-23 with a 21-point comeback. That alone has to make your fans proud, and for that, I'll give you a B+. Well done. When we last checked on the Panthers, they lost to Georgia Tech and beat Chattanooga, but only by 3, and then upset Vanderbilt. That same Vanderbilt team actually has beaten Alabama. So did Georgia State ride the momentum? No, not even close. They lost against in-state rival Georgia Southern 38-21, and even lost to Old Dominion 21-14. Do you understand how bad you have to be to lose to Old Dominion? You guys suddenly had so much hope, yet it flamed out in an instant. Reminds me of Atlanta sports in general. I'm going to give the Panthers a C-. I mean, hey, if you feel down about this year, at least you can say you transitively beat Alabama. When we last left off, JMU looked unbeatable, beating Charlotte, Gardner-Webb, North Carolina, and Ball State. They ended up losing to Louisiana Monroe 21-19. We'll get to the Warhawks in a second, but just know that this was clearly the biggest upset on October 5th, 2024. They did right the ship by beating Coastal Carolina to smithereens, though. This team looks like the favorite to win the Sun Belt East right now, and for good reason. So I'm going to give this team an A. They haven't had any significant weaknesses so far, and they've been performing up to par. Just not in the way I expected them to perform. It's about time you started winning again. They've already picked up wins over Grambling State and Kennesaw State this season, and while a loss against Tulane was a huge setback, they managed to beat a Power 4 team in Wake Forest 41-38. They also managed to beat Southern Miss 23-13 and also beat App State 34-24. Now this team way overshot my expectations for them, but this looks much more like a return to form rather than, whoa, this is a crazy out of nowhere good season. So I'm going to give you an A. Just an A for now. I feel like that's fair without over-glorifying them. Oh, Marshall, you could have asserted yourself in the Sun Belt East and made yourself a name, but nope. Marshall at first was looking like a return to form. They crushed Stony Brook and lost to Virginia Tech and Ohio State, but those performances can't really judge anything, though. Then they routed a few good wins. They beat Western Michigan 27-20. They ended up outrunning App State in the shootout 52-37. And then they even had a 20-point lead in Georgia Southern on the road with under 7 minutes to go in regulation. But I'm pretty sure any fan of this program knows where this is going. They gave up a safety, 3 touchdowns, and a 2-point conversion for the lead in those final few minutes. I would have given you an A- if you managed to beat Georgia Southern. But there's nothing I can give you but B-. Still a respectable season, but ouch. Old Dominion once again is having a pretty frustrating season. They put up good fights against South Carolina and East Carolina, but lost to both. They got dominated by Virginia Tech, and then they finally got their first win of the season against Bowling Green 30-27. They then lost in a shootout to Coastal Carolina 45-37, and actually managed to beat a Sun Belt opponent in the name of Georgia State 21-14. I'm actually a little impressed you even got a Sun Belt victory. But this still isn't that great of a season for them. They have been meeting my expectations, though. So I'm going to give them a C- again. Like I said before, that doesn't mean that Old Dominion isn't having a bad season. They've just been meeting my expectations for them. Take it however you like. Ugh, them. I would love to discredit them in any way I can, but they have us on the schedule today. So I'm not going to be that harsh on them. They lost to North Texas and Ohio before finally picking up wins against Northwestern State and Appalachian State. I was a little worried that this team would find its form, but thankfully they haven't. They got smacked in the mouth against LSU and got upset by Arkansas State. They haven't met my expectations for them, since I expected them to be competing for the West, but they did look nice for the 2 games they actually won, so D+, I guess. Let's have a clean battle of mid tonight. Oh boy, Southern Miss. A team that is clearly just waiting for baseball season at this point. Getting blown out by Kentucky is one thing, but getting blown out by Jacksonville State in South Florida is a completely different thing. They did pick up one win over Southeastern Louisiana, but that's an FCS team. And after dropping admittedly pretty close games against Louisiana 23-13 and UL Monroe 38-21 in a game that was closer than the final score indicates, yeah, this program needs some serious help. I'm actually going to discredit them here and give them an F. Now please clean house next season so we don't have to watch you be disappointing again. When we last saw Texas State, they had struggled against Lamar, crushed UTSA, and lost a close matchup against Arizona State coming into a bye week. Since then, they ended up having a really bad choke. They were up 22-0 over the worst FBS program in the country, Sam Houston State, and somehow could not close it out as they lost 40-39. You would expect the Bobcats to tumble after something like that, but no, they've had good wins over Troy and Arkansas State 38-17 and 41-9 respectively. And other than that random choke in Houston, they've looked really good. I'm actually going to give these guys probably the biggest overrate of the entire video and give them a B-. That choke completely ruined all expectations I had for you. If John Summerall's tenure at Troy emulated a movie, then Gerard Parker's first year here is emulating a tragedy. How does a team get worse than losing to Nevada, Memphis, and Iowa, and their only win being against Florida A&M? With a bunch of injuries against the squad. How about even more injuries? And then failing to beat a ULM team at home that I truly consider to be Troy's first choke since 2021 against, ironically enough, ULM again. And then getting blown out by Texas State at home again. I expected things to be bad this year, but not so bad that I legitimately expect to go 1-11 now. I'm dead serious. The only winnable game that I see remaining is against Southern Miss on November the 30th. This is a first-year team with a completely new system, but I'm not sure how much more broken I can be. I was hoping for a bowl game at best, and now I'm just waiting for the year to be over. I'll give ourselves a D+. Sure, same as them. Why not? We're like brothers at this point. And now it's time for Louisiana Monroe. Holy crap, what a turnaround. When you beat Troy at home 13-9 in a gritty, tough game, when you beat James Madison in the biggest upset of the entire year, when you're 3-0 after rolling over Southern Miss 38-21, and you're the only one in the entire conference to be 3-0 in conference, and the one and only team that you have lost to is Texas, the literal #1 team in the country, and you're legitimately looking at a Sunbelt West title and your first bowl berth in forever with a lot more on the way, there's nothing I can give you but A+. Fly on. Well, that'll do it. Do you enjoy longer form content like this? Or do you prefer for me to go shorter? Let me know so I can adjust in the future. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, ring the bell, and don't forget about John 3:16. And I'll see you next time. Psalms chapter 34, verses 16 through 18. But the Lord turns his face against those who do evil. He will erase their memory from the earth. The Lord hears his people when they call to him for help. He rescues them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed.